Write us in. Tell us where your mom keeps her Vaseline.
Who, what, where, why? Let's look at how you killed that guy. It's Knife to Meet You. Who, what, where, why? Let's look at how you did that crime. It's Knife to Meet You.
Hello, and welcome to Knife to Meet You, the weekly serial killer podcast that wants to pet your dog. I'm Zoe, and this is Brian.
Yeah, I am.
Hi, Brian. How you doing?
Zoe. Listeners, I gotta tell you, Zoe tells me all the time that she's not funny coming up with things on the spot, and she's always wrong. Because that was like 15 seconds of thinking on her end. So I just want you to know and appreciate with me how hilarious Zoe is, whether or not she thinks she is all the time or not.
I'm just not good at being funny on demand. I'm only incidentally funny, you know?
Again, you keep saying that, but again, you did it pretty on demand.
It's true.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to talk to you about this killer again.
So, listeners, right, again. This is a re-recording. Unfortunately, the first time we recorded this episode, the file got corrupted, or I don't know what really happened to it because I'm not in charge of the technical stuff. I'm sure Brian could tell you, but either way, long story short, we're re-recording it. It's kind of funny though, because I almost did this killer, and then I called Brian up and I was like, I don't think I want to do the killer that I was going to do because I find him to be boring. And Brian was like, well, if you don't find him to be interesting, then don't do him. And I was like, okay. And then Brian separately decided to do him, not knowing that I had considered doing, because we don't tell each other. We just say my killer. We don't share any names. Yeah. Until we're recording. We don't give any information to make sure that we get the most authentic, unscripted reactions out of our partner. That's the whole formula of the show.
And what's a formula if you don't break it every now and then, right?
Well, so I actually know a fair bit about the killer that Brian is doing today, but I still think that he is a boring serial killer. I'm sorry, Brian. I still do.
That's okay.
He's a creeper for sure, though. So why don't you tell us all about Israel Keyes?
I would love to tell you about Israel Keyes, but very first, Zoe, the very first thing I have to do is I have to take you back in time.
Oh, yes, you do.
So, Zoe, we're going back to the 1st of February, 2012. Now, popular music at the time, Party Rock Anthem was still doing very strong on the radio. Fun fact, I almost did a flash mob to that song in college, but we couldn't get the people together.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh, man.
And contemporary movies at the time were Chronicle and The Woman in Black.
Oh, that's the one with Daniel Radcliffe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love Daniel Radcliffe.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah. Can you believe that he wrote the entire Harry Potter series all by himself? Prodigy.
I know. He just, from the age of 4, he's just churning out these novels and not some, British turf.
Exactly right. Please continue.
February 1st, 2012. Samantha Koenig, 18, is finishing up her shift at Common Grounds Espresso stand in her hometown of Anchorage, Alaska. Now, Seattle, Washington, in the States, has this reputation for being the coffee city because that's where Starbucks started. And there are a lot of specialty coffee shops that started in Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle's kind of a big hub for a lot of, the very first branching out of coffee conglomerates.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Portland, Oregon, too, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think.
Huh. I believe it. Portland's got a lot of cool stuff. Why wouldn't they have good coffee?
Yeah.
Anchorage, however, Alaska may be the most coffee-consuming city in the United States.
Oh, well, that makes sense given that half the year they've got like no sun.
In
And you
20
need that. You need the circadian rhythm, you know?
you sure do. You got to supplement that somehow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I need the coffee to live, and I live in the sunshine state. So, in a
Yeah.
state that has no sunshine, I cannot even fucking imagine how people operate, except by maybe like, inserting some sort of turnkey device that they crank up every morning, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 2014, they were recorded. This is Anchorage as having nearly 3 coffee shops per 10,000 people.
Damn, I'm moving to Anchorage.
Most of these shops are actually single stall drive through and walk up buildings that usually only hold one employee at a time.
Oh, kind of like in State of Decay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you see those like little coffee stands all over the place, and I was like, how does anyone fit in there? It's just one person making coffee. I guess that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Um,
And I think State of Decay takes place in that area too.
I think you're right.
Yeah, well, one of the maps is like a forestry map with like a moose
Yeah,
or a bear,
very
maybe.
Alaskan.
Yeah. hmm
So this was the same kind of shop that she was working in. Common Grounds Espresso was this single stall coffee shop on a busy street in Anchorage.
An excellent name for a coffee shop. Comment. I love a good pun.
Oh yeah, gotta love it.
Yeah. hmm
Samantha recently graduated from high school, and she was excited about her first job. She was a natural people person, bubbly, and well liked and remembered as having a warm and friendly smile.
Can you
Her
imagine making it through the fucking hellscape that is high school and then being murdered?
I know. That's
Like,
rude.
just when you think you've made it out alive, you know? Just when you think, all right, this is it. I've made it to the real world. I've passed through the fucking crucible. Here I am, bitches.
Right.
Like, God, that really pisses me off for her.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that piss me off for Samantha Koenig.
Yeah. Her father, James Koenig, didn't like that she was working alone at night, but Samantha was confident that the security cameras and the panic button that the owner had installed would help to keep her safe.
Yeah, my older sister is, I think I told you this the first time we recorded this actually, but it's 3 months, so I've already forgotten. It's new to me. My older sister's first job was at a Dunkin' Donuts, and she was like, I want to say 16 or 17 at the time, and my dad was really nervous about her closing up at night too. And my mom used to joke that, if anyone wanted to kidnap her, though, they'd bring her back.
Well, I have a friend who works at a 24-hour Dunkin'
Yeah.
with no drive-through. So they get some weirdos in there at like 4 a.m. at Dunkin'
Sounds
Donuts.
dicey.
Yeah. Around 8 p.m. closing time for Samantha, Koenig hands a cup of coffee to her last customer of the night. CCTV
Just when
footage.
she thinks she's done. Just when she thinks she's done, they pull her back in.
CCTV footage shows Samantha backing away with her hands up as if she was threatened by a gun or another weapon. The lights in the coffee stand go dark, and all that is seen by the security cameras is a man climbing through the drive-through window.
I like to imagine that when Israel Keys climbs through the drive-through window, that it's a very small drive-through window and that this is incredibly awkward for him. And that we have like 10 minutes of video of him just kind of awkwardly like, hold on, I got it. Hold on.
Through the doggy door.
Yep. Like, don't move. Still got the gun. Hold on. Yeah. Because what the fuck?
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been terrifying for her, and I probably shouldn't be making jokes about it, but when you describe a man climbing through the drive-through window, like, there's a door, my dude. Just use the fucking door.
Right. You have a gun on her already. There's a lot of... He had choices.
He had choices.
Everything happens...
choices. He could have maybe, I don't know, not done any of this.
Yeah, he certainly could have. Everything happened so quickly that the panic button was never pressed. And at this point, the CCTV no longer shows Samantha. The man, Israel Keys, took Samantha through the door, which was locked from the inside, which I guess makes sense.
Well, because the only other fucking... Was he going to make her climb out the window that he just climbed in? I mean...
Right.
And then climb out again after her? Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
the window part gets me. It's
No,
just
I know.
so fucking convoluted.
He took Samantha through the door and walks her down the road. Samantha, with his arm around her and his .22 Taurus handgun pointed at her side, broke away and tried to run. Keys then tackled her and threatened to kill her if she tried escaping again. He demanded her debit card, which she told him was in her boyfriend's truck. She also told him it would be parked at her family's house later that night. He drove the both of them to his home, which he shared with his girlfriend and young daughter, and tied her
really
up.
Young daughter. Like, I think his daughter was like 2 at the time.
Yeah, she's
like,
she's
there's a
toddler.
baby in the
Yeah.
house while he is bringing a girl that he has kidnapped and is holding at gunpoint. Like, that's a very dangerous situation to be bringing around your fucking 2-year-old. I just would like to say.
No, you're absolutely right to have around a toddler and your spouse.
Yeah, but he didn't bring her into the house, though. He put her in
The shed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he put her up in a tool shed next to the house. He's promised to kill her if she screamed, and turned on a radio loud to hide any noise that she might make.
I'm just gonna KTMY safety tip. If you're afraid to run, if you're afraid to scream, these are all totally normal things. If your captor threatens you that he's going to hurt or kill you if you do any of these things, please understand he intends to hurt and kill you anyway. And your only for escape is if someone hears you. So I'd consider it. I obviously not victim blaming.
No,
I would not in any way fault you if you were just too afraid to do anything anyway. Like, dear listener, I'm just saying that my safety tip is fucking go for it. you know?
If a person has abducted you, you can't trust what they're going to say, and
Do your absolute best to keep them from taking you to a secondary location, because statistically that is where they're going to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, please continue.
Keys drove to the address Samantha had given him, which was her parents' house,
Yep.
and broke into her boyfriend's truck and stole her debit card.
Yep. Well, her family
boyfriend-
was home, by the way. Her
Yes,
family was all
yes.
there.
Her family and her boyfriend are all there waiting for her to get home from work when he decides to break into her truck.
Yeah. Well, his truck. It's the boyfriend's truck.
The boyfriend's truck, yes. Her
What a
boyfriend
piece
was
of shit.
the boyfriend is already anxious because Sam, as she was known to her friends and loved ones, wasn't at Common Grounds when he went to pick her up from her shift. He heard a noise outside and yelled out to Keys, who ran away.
Almost fucking caught him. Can you imagine?
Almost. Yeah. Like if he
Or
had,
I guess he's probably would have shot the kid. So I guess it's lucky that he didn't get killed as well. But
Mhm.
I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there that he saw Keys. He saw the guy.
Yeah. It's
Kills me. Kills
Yeah.
me. The whole case really kills me.
When he returned home, he poured himself a glass of wine
As one
And-
does.
and went to the shed and raped Samantha Koenig.
Fucking ass.
He also takes several pictures of Samantha, which hold on to the idea of those pictures. That's coming back soon.
Which Hustler magazine tried to take.
Oh my God. Listeners, this isn't an episode upcoming, but we just recorded this yesterday. Hustler magazine fucking sucks. Sorry,
I forgot that we were recording out of order. I totally forgot that this was a re-recording and that this is coming out next week, and I just referenced an episode that will not be coming out for like 3 months.
Yep, that's okay.
Sorry.
That's the bait. That's gonna. They know something's gonna happen with Hustler. Stay tuned, listeners.
And anyone who's like, why do you record 3 months out? I have chronic health issues, and we have family obligations, and we started this podcast in the year of the Great Plague. So I wanted us to record 3 months of episodes before we launched, and then continue recording every week, so that if something happened to one or both of us, we would have a 3-month grace period.
Yeah, and it's worked out really well already.
Yeah.
It has already saved our butts more than once.
Absolutely has. Planning ahead, time management. Yeah. Pew, 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 pew. Sorry. Continue.
You can't hear my finger guns.
Right. So he's taking pictures of Sam because he's a fucking dickbag.
Yep. Afterwards, he strangles her to death, wraps her body in a plastic tarp, and stored it in a cabinet inside the shed. I do want to remind everybody that we are talking about Anchorage, Alaska in February.
So it's cold as shit.
It's a tool shed, so it's basically outside. It's very cold. Taking note of the time, Keyes went inside, woke up his family, began their day, and called a cab to take him to the airport. Because he had booked a family trip and a New Orleans cruise months before.
I can't even begin to. All right.
No, I know. This is one of those. I know you think the case is boring, but there are little details like this that stick out to me because it is just so.
Oh no! I don't think the case is
unhinged.
boring. I don't think the case is boring. I think that Israel Keyes as a person is fucking boring.
Gotcha.
Yeah. There is nothing about his psychology that to me is like, huh. Everything about him is just like, yep. Uh-huh. From being raised in a cult to like all his other shit to murdered a girl, now let's go on a cruise, is just like, all right, bud.
Yeah.
I mean, the case is interesting. He's also a fucking bank robber. You don't get to see that every day,
No.
But I cannot find it in myself to be interested in his psychology as a person. I just find him to be so overwhelmingly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from now a lot better.
Yeah.
He is a bit typical.
Yeah, and in the case where a lot of other people are like, oh my god, Israel Keyes, and they think that he's so scary and so like, oh, he's such a master. No, he's not. He's fucking stupid. Like, and I just
dumb.
He is a dummy dum dum. Absolutely. I've never said that phrase before in my life, but it is applicable here, and I will repeat it a second time. He is a dummy dum dum. Yep. He is. And furthermore, all of the speculation about his killings across the country because he traveled a lot and wasn't caught for a long time, people think that means that he's smart. Like, oh man, he eluded police. It's because people didn't put two and two together. It's just police not communicating, okay?
It's an aptitude or happenstance.
Yes.
It's any number of things that happen to not draw these things together. He wasn't a genius.
No.
He was lucky.
And this was 20 years ago. People think 2000 is not that long ago. It is, though, now. It's 2021. This was 20 years ago.
This is 2012, so we're 9 years ago, but still, it is a long time.
Didn't he start in 2000, though?
He did start in 2000, but our narrative here starts in 2012. So, yeah, you're right. I apologize. We're talking cross purposes a lot because we've done this already.
Yeah, sorry. He started killing in 2000-ish, maybe 2001.
Yeah.
But, let's not quibble over that last year. My point is, millennium. It's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That was Backstreet Boys, by the way. I know you didn't know, so I had to tell you.
I knew it was either NSYNC or the Backstreet Boys. I couldn't remember, but when you said that, all I could think of is the Will Smith song "Millennium."
I forgot about Millennium. Oh man. Oh man.
1999 was wild, y'all.
It was a good time though. It was crazy. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of reason. It was the age of madness. We knew all and we knew nothing. Oh man. But what I'm saying is that since 2000, VICAP has become a thing. The advent of the introduction of technology as a method of communication between interdisciplinary police and law enforcement factions has become a thing. And so if he had been doing this shit now, nuh-uh.
No way. Because he would have been on the shit wire from the very beginning and people would have been tracking him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Abso-fucking-lutely. Sorry for that.
Oh no! Listen, I don't mind the tangents at all.
I felt the need to clarify about why I just don't like Israel Keys. I think he's a basic bitch, and
I'd make an Uggs joke, but we've already done that.
Where are my Uggs?
Oh
my god!
Don't like it.
I need my lip gloss. Okay, so you were saying,
where's my Burt's Bees?
I actually really like Burt's Bees.
So do I, but I heard that a lot from Ugg type people.
Yeah.
Or what's that one that's shaped like an egg?
What one is shaped like an egg?
It's like a lip balm.
Oh, yeah. My mom stole all of mine of those.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't remember what they're called, but they're made with shea. They're very good. And I had a strawberry one that was my favorite. And my mom was like, oh, I love this. And now she still uses it. She's made it last, there's no way that it still works, but she still uses it.
All the shea is evaporated into the ether.
It's like, how your mom has a tub of Vaseline that she bought in the 90s and it's still around and she still uses it and it's only half used because it's so massive.
So I could find that. I know where that tub of Vaseline is right now.
Yep.
If I needed to find it.
And everyone listening to this right now, I mean, you know. Write us in. Tell us where your mom keeps her Vaseline. That sounded way different than I meant it to. Please don't ever take that clip out of context. But I just meant bathroom cabinet.
Yeah.
Maybe we should cut that.
Contrary, I think that's our opener.
No. Our opener should be me calling Israel Keys a basic bitch.
Yeah, probably. After the cruise, Israel rented a car and drove to a house in Aledo, Texas, which he robbed and burned down.
Of course he did.
The very next day, he robbed the National Bank of Texas in Azle and flew back to Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
A few days after his return, he's removed Samantha's body from the shed cabinet, put makeup on her face, and sewed her eyes open with fishing line.
Yes, he did.
He then took more pictures of the body, posed with a recent newspaper, and left them in a dog park.
It was the Anchorage Daily News, for those of you who are interested.
Ooh.
Yes. He also posed her body. He tried to make her look alive. Yeah.
Yeah, because he sewed her eyes open.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Using her phone, he sent text messages to her family demanding a $30,000 ransom be placed into her bank account. After the ransom was paid, he cut up her body and dumped the remains into nearby Matanuska Lake. He was arrested and held in Texas before he could be extradited back to Alaska. The Anchorage investigator who had been lead on the case of Samantha Koenig's disappearance was Monique Dahl. she and her partner, Jeff Bell, went immediately to Texas from Anchorage to question Keyes. And Dahl had this to say about her first interaction with Keyes. Quote, I told him that the first couple of times that I read the ransom, I thought whoever wrote the note was a monster. And the more I read it, it must have been 100 times, the more I came to understand that monsters aren't born, but are created, and that this person had a story to tell. His response was firm. I can't help you.
Yeah.
But something changes with Keyes, because sometime between when he's arrested in Texas and when he's finally extradited back to Alaska, he changes his mind.
Hmm.
After his extradition, however, Keyes seemingly changed his mind. He asked an officer to pass a message on to Dahl, quote, tell her she's got her monster. Which is like, fuck you, dude. Like, he wants to be a monster.
Yes, he absolutely does.
Yeah.
It makes him feel powerful.
Yep.
Again, he's a basic bitch.
Yes, who idolized Ted Bundy.
Do not get me. Oh my God. I can't. Brian.
Yes, Zoe.
Yeah. If you guys listen to this show, then you know how I feel about Ted Bundy and anyone who idolizes Ted Bundy.
Yep.
He's the most basic bitch, and even his idol is the most basic bitch. I can't even begin to tell you. Oh, somebody get this guy a pair of Uggs. He dumped her in Manitousca Lake, north of Anchorage. And then what happened?
Following an initial reluctance, Keyes admitted to the abduction of Samantha Koenig. He promised investigators to tell them everything about her disappearance and more on 2 conditions.
Ugh, spare me.
Number 1, Keyes wanted a speedy trial in which he would plead guilty and be sentenced to the death penalty, and he wanted to die within a year of sentencing.
Which would never happen.
No. 2, he wanted every detail about his crimes kept away from the press, as he didn't want his daughter to know what he had done to Samantha.
Also completely impossible.
Yeah. He said he had already come to grips with his friends, family, and the customers of his handyman business would come to know the side that he had hidden for so long, but wanted to keep it from his daughter, apparently.
Yeah, he says a lot of shit about his daughter, like how he couldn't ever bring himself to hurt children because once he had his daughter, he realized that children were too precious to harm. It's a whole load of fucking bullshit. Like, if you could see me, I'm making the jerking off motion with my, like, it's just, it's all bullshit. He's such a basic bitch. I'm sorry.
If those conditions were met, Keyes would quote, tell you everything you want to know. I'll give it blow by blow if you want. I have lots more stories to tell.
Yikes.
As a show of good faith, Keyes told them to the extent of what he had done to Samantha, including the details of his having sex with her corpse and where he had dumped her remains, which police found just a few days later.
Honestly, I prefer that they have sex with the corpse because at least they don't have to be fucking there for it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I know a lot of people get really incensed because it's like the desecration of the body, but they don't live there anymore, you know? Your loved one is flown the coop. So I would much rather them not have to go through it, you know?
Yeah. To not live through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, maybe that's a controversial thing to say, but I just...
Samantha was cremated, and her family held a memorial service for her on Easter Sunday of 2012. At this point, Keyes starts playing games with investigators. He really wanted to prove that he was smarter than them.
Which he wasn't, because he's dumb and he's a little shit.
Yeah, he really wanted to do the sort of cat and mouse where, ooh, maybe I give you something, and ooh, maybe you give me something.
Yeah, he really wanted this FBI agent to be his Clarice Starling, and it just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. No, he was living in absolute fantasy land because he thought that the information that he had was so valuable that they would give him anything he wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he's stupid. And he
Yeah.
also thought that he could ask for things that just would not be possible. Like,
Right.
I need you to change the entire system and the way that it works. Like, even if they wanted to give him that, first of all, they didn't have the authority to.
Yeah.
And secondly, even if they did have the authority to order it, so that would not make it so.
Mhm.
You know, people sit
Yeah.
on death row for like 20, 25 years, you know, like it's
No, yeah, absolutely.
fucking. All right. I'm sorry. The guy just has no understanding of practicality.
No, well, because he has this mentality of I get what I want, and
Because he's a fucking toddler.
yeah, he's an overgrown toddler.
Maybe that's why he doesn't want to hurt children. Because he's one of them. Sorry.
That's all right. Keyes was also linked to the deaths of Bill and Lorraine Currier of Essex, Vermont.
Right.
Along with his confession about Samantha, authorities say they have enough evidence to link him to the murders. The Vermont couple was last seen leaving work in June 2011. Keyes reportedly broke into their home on the night of the 8th and tied them up before driving them to an abandoned farmhouse where he shot Bill Currier before sexually assaulting and strangling Lorraine.
Yeah, I totally forgot about the couriers.
Yeah. Their bodies have not been found.
I know. And that really, really kills me.
Yeah.
You know, I was actually thinking about the couriers in an episode that will not come out for 3 months, but you were telling me about Irene and John.
Oh, the Bryants.
Yeah. It was a lot like that. It was a lot like that.
Yeah.
And I was just grateful that they eventually found them.
Yeah, likewise.
They were also in an RV, you know?
Yeah.
So it made me think of them. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 2 years prior to their deaths, their murders, Keyes had a murder kit near their home,
Yeah.
which included a handgun and various other supplies, including the ligature he used to strangle Lorraine Currier.
Yeah, he used to do that a lot. He would like take a Home Depot bucket and he would fill it with like guns and duct tape and just like, you know, your regular fucking kill kit kind of shit. And then just bury it somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, bury them in the American Southwest. And that was what part of what his map showed. The map that they arrested him with was like where he had stashed his murder kits.
Yeah.
He did use these supplies in the murder of the Curriers, and afterwards he moved most of the things to a hiding place in Parrishville, New York, where they remained hidden until he was arrested and gave that up to them.
Which is so stupid because obviously the whole point of doing that is so that if you're caught, they don't have that evidence. You know, like the reason he would do that as opposed to just carrying his kill kit with him like Richard Cottingham did, you know, in a duffel bag in your car. You know, the whole reason is to be smarter than the cops because he thought he was so fucking smart. But it's like, oh, right. But you also made a map of the locations of all your kill kits and they found that. So like, you fucking stunod. Oh, and when you mentioned Ted Bundy and how he was like obsessed with Ted Bundy, I forgot to mention that he called BTK a wimp. Did you read that?
No, I didn't see that.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't have the source for this, but you can look it up. He apparently called Dennis Rader, the BTK killer, a wimp for showing remorse for his crimes.
Oh,
I guess that's from an Anchorage Daily News article.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't know that. He just wanted to be the best.
Yeah, and he thought that he was. He thought that he was going to be the best serial killer who ever lived, and he thought that he was so much smarter than everyone else. He had a real narcissistic complex.
Yeah.
Full two for overestimation of self.
Yeah.
Yep, full 100%. And he was like, to a delusional degree, just honestly, full 2 for everything on the PCLR. I know we haven't gotten to part 2 yet, but it's just going to be full 2 for everything now, and I'm just calling it because he's so. On the one hand, you want to be like, oh, classic, you know, all the hallmarks are there, everything's there. We should have known from the beginning. But he just thinks everyone thinks he's so unique and so, and so this and that. It's like people who think that Ted Bundy was so handsome. This asshole looked like he was fucking the son of Ernie from Sesame Street. Okay? Don't tell me he was attractive, first of all. And secondly, they were like, oh, he was so charming. Yeah, he was so charming. He convinced everyone to go with him. No, he wasn't, and he didn't. He pretended to be injured and relied on other people being good people and then took them by surprise when they got too close. That did not require him to be particularly charming, just cunning and manipulative, which is a different trait than glib and superficial charm. So fuck you.
This has been Zoe's Ted Bundy soapbox minute.
Featured at every other episode on Nice to Meet You. God, I'm sorry. I hate him so much, Brian. I hate him so much.
I know. So during their interrogation of Keyes, they actually interrogated him for about 40 hours worth of interviews.
Oh yeah, they got a whole ton of like recorded footage of him just talking, and he's such a little shit.
Oh, he's so smug.
He is. He's so smug.
Yeah, he enjoys talking to them, and
he loves the attention, and he thinks he's fun.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'll stop mocking him openly.
Well, that's okay. That's fine. We're allowed to. During this, they find out a couple of things about Keyes. He was a U.S. Army veteran, and he lived a relatively quiet life in one of Anchorage's richest neighborhoods, doing well-regarded handyman work for unsuspecting customers. He had been due to go to trial in March for Koenig's death, and the investigators believed he had killed 8 to 11 people, if not more. Quote, everything that he told them is borne out, quote, Lieutenant Dave Parker of the Anchorage Police Department said. Keyes admitted that he committed numerous killings, bank robberies, and other crimes across the country. He admitted to plans for more killings. He admitted to several unreported crimes and acts of cruelty committed before he started killing people, including the rape of a teenager in Oregon in the late 1990s and the torture of animals when he was a child. His suicide, which I just say that casually because we've talked about this before. Spoiler alert, everybody. Israel Keyes killed himself in prison before he could stand trial.
Because he's a punk-ass bitch.
Yep. He slit his wrists and hung himself with a bedsheet. So he really wanted to make sure he got it done.
Yeah. Did you find the 2020 information that the FBI released?
No, tell me about this.
So in 2020, the FBI released the drawings of 11 skulls and 1 pentagram, which Israel Keyes had drawn in his own blood secretly and hidden beneath his jail cell bed. They only found this after he committed suicide. One of the drawings included the phrase, "We are one," written in all capital letters at the bottom. And the FBI believes that the number of skulls, which is 11, correlates with the believed number of his total victims.
Okay.
Yeah. So CBS did a big report about this. I believe there's a YouTube video on ABC News. But the information came out May 19th of 2020. And basically, they were hoping by putting out this new information that it would help people to come forward and help them identify victims that they believe are related to Israel Keyes. So they did a 48 hours investigation with what's his name? Peter Van Sant.
Yes.
And you can Google it and you can see the pictures of the skulls laid out. They look like they're finger paintings and they look like it.
Yeah.
They look like they were drawn by a toddler.
Yeah.
A creepy, creepy toddler.
I also want to know what the pentagram's about, because that doesn't fit into what
he's also got
about him.
he's also got Baphomet on the pentagram with a cross of St. Peter the Apostle on the forehead. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. But he was very briefly a self-proclaimed Satanist, remember? So
that's right.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, he was well known in Anchorage as a really good handyman, said State Senator Hollis French, who lived around the corner from Israel Keys. According to Keys in one of his interviews, quote, there's no one who knows me or has ever known me, who knows anything about me, really. I disagree, Israel. I think Zoe and I understand quite a bit about you. I think we have a picture that we can paint.
Yeah, that's the only good thing that I have to say about Israel Keys, that apparently he did good handiwork.
Yeah.
Apparently he could fix shit, you know?
Yeah, it's true. Keys also told authorities that he almost killed a young couple and an Anchorage police officer at a beach overlook about a month before he killed the couriers in Vermont. Keys said he was hiding in the park with a gun and a silencer and ready to ambush his victims. He wanted to test the silencer that he would later bring to the East Coast on his trip to kill the couriers.
That's not how you test a silencer. Oh my God, you fucking idiot.
If
it doesn't work, then you've screwed yourself.
If it doesn't work, the gun's gonna backfire.
Yeah, that too, but
he stopped and chose not to murder them when a second police officer arrived. Quote, it could have got ugly, but fortunately for the cop guy, his backup showed up, a chuckling Keys said in one interview. I almost got myself into a lot of trouble on that one. The silencer eventually wound up in the stockpile of murder supplies that Keys stashed in upstate New York near a home that he actually owned up there. Keys admitted to placing several such caches around the country, investigators said. However, officials have so far only found two, the one in New York and one in Anchorage, that contained a shovel, bottles of liquid clog remover, tarp, and speeding decomposition, a tarp which he used for concealing the body and speeding decomposition. Until he was arrested, Keys' plan was to leave Alaska that year and work as an itinerant contractor, making repairs in hurricane-struck areas of the United States. Quote, that would allow him to move from one place and commit more murders. And I was trying to think about this because he's talking about hurricanes. So you're talking about the 2013 hurricane season, which was I think that was one of the ones that hit Florida. I think that might have been Charley in 2013.
There's so many fucking hurricanes. I don't keep track.
There's too many hurricanes.
Yeah.
But that's Israel Keys.
Yes, it is.
We have a bit more to get into with him in the second half of the show, or the second part of the show.
Stay tuned, guys.
That's right. We'll be right back with part 2.
Something keeping you up at night? Maybe you forgot to subscribe to our Patreon. You can support us over at patreon.com/KTMY podcast for just $3 a month and get access to our amazing bonus episodes as well as our monthly Patreon exclusive Q&As. You can also follow us on Instagram or Facebook at KTMY Podcast or on Twitter at KTMY Pod. Feel free to send us stuff at ktmypodcast@gmail.com or on our website at ktmypodcast.com. Welcome to part 2 of Knife to Meet You, where we talk about the psychology and usually the background, like childhood, of the killer. Today, we're discussing Israel Keyes. Take it away, Brian.
Israel Keyes. I should probably have this thing pulled up before I start talking. Good job, Brian.
I mean, listen.
Oh, goodness.
Nobody's perfect.
Israel Keyes was born January 7th, 1978. He lived the majority of his life in Alaska. As said, he worked in the Army. He served in the Army for a number of years. He worked as a handyman, as an itinerant worker, for the most part. And the most interesting thing about Israel Keyes' background, which Zoe did sort of talk about previously, was the fact that he was raised in a white supremacist cult.
Yeah, he was.
So Israel Keyes was born into a fundamentalist Christian family that attended white supremacist anti-Semitic church, but later moved out of that region, became affiliated with other white supremacist congregations, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. There, Keyes spent a lot of time building up community. He was well known and well liked within his group of cultists.
When you said that, it was so beautiful. He's well known and well liked within his group of cultists. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
That's okay. Keyes did serve in the U.S. Army for 3 years. He was briefly in Egypt, but was discharged from Fort Lewis Army Base in Washington State in 2001. So he was actually discharged right before 9/11. In his interviews, he said he was anxious for military service to end so that he could start murdering people.
That's about right.
And then he did.
Right.
He murdered the couriers in 2007 and continued killing, the extent of which we do not know, because he punked out and killed himself.
Yep.
Before confessing to everything.
Who's the wimp now, Israel? Who's the wimp now?
I was gonna say, like, BTK's still alive.
Still alive and taking applications for pen pals.
Is Israel Keyes dumber than BTK?
Oof. Now that is a question.
I think that's a Patreon episode. We could spend an hour on that.
That's a rap battle I'd want to hear. For the McDonald triad. You know what?
I just want to interject one thing real quick.
Yes.
After his arrest and suicide, his family did end up leaving that church that he had belonged to, and hopefully got themselves a bit more right after learning what Israel had been up to and the people that they had been associating with.
I think he was actually friendly with another killer. I don't know if he was a serial killer, but there was another violent criminal that was affiliated with that group. And that was like a whole thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
There was definitely a whole other, like, situation.
Wow.
Yeah. Let me... when Keyes was 5, his family deconverted from Mormonism and moved to Colville, Washington, where they lived in a one-room cabin with no electricity or running water. And in Colville, the family attended services at 2 churches, the Ark and the Christian Israel Covenant Church, which practiced white supremacist Christian identity ideology. And he befriended the neighboring family of white supremacists and the convicted murderer, Chivi Kehoe. But he had renounced the Christian faith by the time he was a teenager and eventually became interested in Satanism.
I didn't know about the connection to that other murderer.
Yeah. So Keyes and his family had been neighbors and friends with the notorious Kehoe family, who lived a half a mile away in the same area of Washington during the 1990s. And the Kehoe sons, white supremacists, Chevy and Shane, spelled with CHs because that's how white supremacists do it, are now serving lengthy prison sentences in connection with a deadly rampage that they conducted in the name of their Aryan Republican Army, including Chevy's Kehoe's 1996 torture murder of a family of 3 in Arkansas.
Holy shit.
Yeah. In addition to living closely together in Stevens County, Washington, the Keyes and Kehoe families both homeschooled their children and also occasionally attended a Christian identity church called the Ark, pastored by Dan Henry, who told the report that he didn't remember the Keyes attending, but said that they might have. The Ark taught that white people are the superior race and that the Bible is their story. Hardline identity followers believe that Jews are biologically satanic, although many see Jews as merely cursed by God.
Oh, that's a holdover from Mormonism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy
It's like
moly.
it's a whole fucking thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like the different threads of like white supremacist Christian identity, quote, religion, runs through a lot of other mainstream religions as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know I always say this, but there's a huge difference between devil worship and Satanism.
Yeah.
And I think that, you have to be Christian based in your ideologies if you believe that the devil exists.
Yes.
True, like Lavellan Satanism believes in no higher power other than yourself and does not acknowledge the existence of God or the devil. So
Anton LaVey was a staunch atheist. He was an anti-theist.
That is correct. So, there are people who often confuse the two terms because they think that Satanism is the worship of Satan. And I will agree that Anton LaVey calling his church the Church of Satan is a misnomer in more ways than one. First of all, it's not a church. Second of all, they don't believe in Satan. Baphomet is a symbol of one's own personal power. So,
right. Well, and also the word Satan historically also just meant adversary.
That's true, but only biblically did it become, especially when combined with the word church.
Oh, absolutely.
A reference to a specific divine being.
Yes, the Luciferian concept of Satan.
Yes. Did you just coin the term Luciferian, or is that like a real?
I don't know if I've ever heard it, but it sounds right.
I like it.
Thank you.
We're keeping it.
Okay. It's
Luciferian,
ours,
other relating to Lucifer. Yeah. So. Yeah.
But yeah, it's and he had the Baphomet pentacle on his finger painting as well.
Yes, he did. And another point, I'm sure you noticed his name is Israel.
Yeah.
Although the Keyes family was originally Mormon when he was born, up until he was like five to 7
old.
Yeah. They named him Israel, and identity believers often describe themselves as the true Israel, meaning that they, and not today's Jews, are the real descendants of the Bible's Hebrews. Which is because Israel is the promised land. I don't know. It's a whole fucking thing. I can't even begin to.
That's like standard Christian replacement theology wrought large.
Yeah. This information brought to you by the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Shout out to the SPLC.
Yeah. So yeah, he knew some terrorists.
Wow.
Yep.
Who are thankfully rotting in jail.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't looked into them, so I don't know if they're still alive or what, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you want to get into the McDonald Triad a bit?
I would love to. Talk to me about the McDonald Triad.
So the McDonald Triad is made up of 3 different points, right?
No, I don't mean define it. Obviously, anyone who listens to this show knows.
So of the 3 points on the McDonald Triad, we have 2 for sure, which is arson and cruelty to animals.
Absolutely.
which 2 is enough to basically say yes for sure you are. Or maybe not.
It's an indicator that there's
Yeah.
gonna be problems.
Yeah. We do have no indication of bedwetting from anything that I've seen about him.
Well,
I think it's time to start the PCLR.
I would agree with that statement.
Awesome.
I don't see him as being glib or superficially charming, even remotely, and not one source has said that he is.
No, not at all.
But I'm giving him a full 2 on grandiose estimation of self.
I was going to say, like, he definitely thinks he's charming, which comes into that glib that grandiose estimation of self.
Thinking something doesn't make it so.
Very true. So next on the PCLR is
the need for stimulation.
I haven't seen really any evidence of that. Have you?
No, none whatsoever. But again, we haven't been given any detailed analyses of a lot of his information. So, like, I've never sat in a room with him. I've never just watched him.
Yeah.
To see if he needs to fidget.
Mm-hmm.
So, guess this goes mine.
Yeah. Next is pathological lying,
which you can't. I mean, you can't do the things that he did without being a fucking, pathological liar. So
absolutely.
Cunning and manipulativeness, full 2.
Yeah. Lack
of remorse or guilt, full 2.
Big 2.
Shallow affect, full 2.
Yep.
Callousness, lack of empathy, full 2.
Yep.
He had a good business. I don't think but he also robbed banks. So
he robbed banks and he extorted Samantha Koenig's family for $30,000.
He absolutely did. You are correct.
So I think that's 2 for parasitic lifestyle.
That is a fair assessment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Poor behavioral controls.
No, everything was very meticulously plotted out. I don't think he acted recklessly in any circumstance.
Yeah. Well, he stopped himself from killing 3 people when a second cop showed up. So
he says.
So he says. True. These are the words of Israel Keys we're talking about here.
I can't even. Okay. If I get started, I'll get started. So let's not. Sexual promiscuity.
I don't see anything.
Yeah, me either. Early behavior problems.
I see it 2 because he was cruel to animals as a kid, and as a teenager, he raped another teenager.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So that's a full 2. Lack of realistic long-term goals. I don't actually think he had a lack of realistic long-term goals.
No.
Impulsivity, no. Irresponsibility, no.
No.
Failure to accept responsibility for own actions, full 2. I'd give him a 3 if I could, Brian.
100%.
He did not have many short-term marital relationships, so it's a 0 for that. Juvenile delinquency, absolutely.
2, big 2.
Revocation of conditional release. Did he ever violate parole?
No, he never had parole.
Yeah. Criminal versatility. Yeah, full 2. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So that brings us to a total of 22 points. Now, obviously,
we're missing a ton of information here, and I'm willing to believe that there's a lot here that we don't know about. I'm sure there are many ways in which he was incredibly impulsive, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Although I can think of no greater fuck you to Israel Keys than by saying, no, you are not a psychopath on the edge of Ted Bundy. You are even more basic than you thought.
I mean, I think that it's not a measurement of how evil he was, which I think is what he wanted to accomplish, or how, smart he was, which is what he wanted to be. Like, he thought of himself as like an evil mastermind supervillain,
Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
this is not a measurement of that. This is a measurement of his inability to feel human empathy, which I think is absolute. I think that's undeniable.
It's apparent, yeah.
Yeah. And, that would not be his goal if he could feel things like love and empathy and, view other people as anything other than talking props.
Yeah.
Well,
so and it even goes to show how he viewed them as props with how he literally propped up Samantha.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So
wow.
I don't think it's accurate to be like, oh, well, he doesn't get this score because he would want it. That's not what the PCLR is about,
I know. I really get sick of this guy at a certain point because he wants it so badly. He's so desperate.
I know. It's pathetic.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get it, man. I get it.
Yeah. But you know what isn't pathetic, listeners? The fact that we are finally available on Apple Podcasts.
Sorry, please edit that down to an acceptable level of volume. I
won't blow out our listeners' ears. Listeners, I can't even tell you how hard we have tried to make this happen.
2.5 months to make this happen.
2.5 months. I think I've sent probably 15 emails to Apple support. But it's here. It's there. You can search us up on Knife to Meet You. Please leave us a rating and a review. We're actually running a giveaway right now, if you haven't seen, on the socials.
Yes, until the end of July.
That's right. To the end of July, if you leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, you are entered to win a $25 Amazon gift card, which we will deliver electronically to the winner when they are chosen.
When they are chosen. Sorry.
Oh, gosh. Listeners,
you know what you signed up for when you started this podcast with me.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you so much, Brian, for telling me a second time, first and second time, all about Basic Bitch Israel Keys. Let's hear it for Brian.
Thank you. I had a great time doing this one with you again because I liked this because we just got to kind of
dunk on him.
Yeah, it was a little more casual. It was a little more Yeah, I think this was great, and we had a grand old time.
I really had a better time than I thought. I was pleasantly surprised because I thought A, because I don't like Israel Keys, and B, because it was a re-recording, that this was going to be kind of boring for me. But it wasn't. This was actually very very fun. I think probably because I got to get on a soapbox for a lot of it.
Well, we love Zoe's Soapbox Hour.
We do.
Coming soon to Patreon, Zoe's Soapbox Hour.
Anyway, thank you, listeners, so much. As always, it has been so nice to meet you, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.